Our speaker today, Eric Hellman, is a change coach and communications consultant. His passion, probably his enthusiasm, is sharing his vision of what is spiritually possible while connecting it to our human challenges and being realistic, and what we can do practically to create results in our own lives and for those around us. And our musician today, Nathen Aswell, is also a gifted speaker, a recording artist, coach, and podcaster based in Vancouver. And he believes that his calling in life is to encourage, through his engaging talks, his heart-centered music, and his warm listening. His CDs, Little by Little, and Yes, are celebrations of life, transformation, evolution, and the oneness of humanity, delivered in a variety of popular music styles infused with enthusiasm. So without further ado, I turn the mic over to Nathen. There you go, Nathen. Go crazy.
Thank you so much, Pixie. Here's a song of mine called Do That Thing. So that everyone's the same until the party line. I know the score, so you're sure of what's in store. I watch for all the signs, yeah. Remedy, heard about it on TV. It's the latest thing. Surf the net so you know which one to get. It does everything. That whole scene's unraveling. Whatever feeds your soul, whatever makes you whole, whatever makes you feel, whatever makes you heal, whatever makes you sure, whatever makes you pure, whatever makes you sing, sing. Do that thing. Get out of your head and just do it. Get out of your head and into your body. Out of your head and just do it. Out of your head and into your body. We don't need to conform with every deed. We don't need what's new. What we need is to let ourselves be free. What we need is you, yeah. Celebrate that thing you do. Whatever feeds your soul, whatever makes you whole, whatever makes you feel, whatever makes you heal, whatever makes you sure, whatever makes you pure, whatever makes you sing, sing. Do that thing. Animate, energize, stimulate, go to it. Vitalize, activate, galvanize, just do it. Listen up for a minute, stop your hurrying. What you gonna get with all that worrying? So much to remember, so much to forget. It's gonna kill you if you aren't dead yet, so find a way to unwind, clear your mind. There'll never be a better place and time, because now is all we have and all there is. So just do it. Do that thing, ooh, that thing that makes you sing. Whatever feeds your soul, whatever makes you whole, whatever makes you feel, whatever makes you heal, whatever makes you sure, whatever makes you pure, whatever makes you sing, sing. Do that thing, just do what you will, but harm none. Just got to remember that golden rule, which is do what you will, but harm none. And let kindness be your whatever feeds your soul, whatever makes you whole, whatever makes you feel, whatever makes you heal, whatever makes you sure, whatever makes you pure, whatever makes you sing, sing, do that thing. The God in me beholds the God in you. Namaste. The God in me beholds the God in you. Namaste. All is beautiful, all is well, all is beautiful, all is well. The God in me beholds the God in you. Namaste. The God in me beholds the God in you. Namaste. All is beautiful, all is well, all is beautiful, all is well.
So as you continue to hear the strains, gentle tones of Nathan's stick, take a breath. Take a breath and let it just help you to start to unwind. Feel yourself starting to ground. Feel yourself on the chair. Feet connecting to the floor. And just begin to let go. The God in me sees the God in you. Namaste. As you take another breath, just begin to feel the awareness of your body. Perhaps you feel the energy in your head or your shoulders. Just begin to let that energy drop down through you, through your upper body, your shoulders, your chest, your arms. Just feel it flowing down through your torso and your seat into the chair, down through your legs, your shins, your feet, into the floor. Begin to notice the sounds around you. And then the sizzle inside. Begin to feel your hands and your feet, the coolness or the warmth. And as you still yourself, begin to feel the presence of something more. Perhaps it's a feeling of almost beginning to dissolve your body or your thoughts. And merge with what's around you. Or perhaps it's the experience of a sensation in your chest, beating of your heart, or the presence of love or God within. Take a few moments as we enter the silence and just experience being. Now very, very gently begin to feel yourself coming back into your body and its awareness. Hearing Nathen's music, or the sounds around you in your room. Begin to move your shoulders, your torso, or your hands or feet. And be aware of your breath. Come back. Come back. But as you do so, remember that beauty, that stillness, that deep place within you and around you, so that you can live from that place as well as the world around you. Begin to make your movements a little bit more pronounced. Open your eyes. Begin to hear that music getting a little stronger. It brings you back into the room. And just feel yourself relaxed, sitting in your chair, and present, being able to see the screen. Yet hold that beautiful thought, peace, be still. Thank you, Brother Nathen. All right, welcome back to all of you. We'll say adieu to Nathen for a few minutes. See him after the talk. And my talk today, assuming my PowerPoint will begin to work, there we go, is where do you feel your sizzle or your zeal? So, as we begin a new month, the 10th month of the year, we enter the last of our 12 powers. That's the last 12 powers. And this month, as you've heard, the topic power is zeal. Now, some of you might look at that word and go, huh? Exactly. What the heck is zeal? Think for a moment of how many times you've used the word zeal in the last week, the last month, the last year. I was trying to think back over 66 years, and I can't think of really when I've ever used that word except in a context of unity. So it's a bit of a strange word, and I'd like to explore why we use that word. In unity, Charles Fillmore, the co-founder with Myrtle, used to focus on the word zeal. So I wanted to explore a little bit of what he said about zeal to lead us into this exploration. The first thing he said was zeal is the impulse of existence to move forward. He also said it was the inward fire of the soul that urges us, or humanity, onward. You see where he's going with this, right? When Charles was 94, he wrote this famous thing within Unity, and you might recognize some of the words. I fairly sizzle with zeal and enthusiasm and spring forth with a mighty faith, some of the words that you've heard in the songs and daily words so far, to do the things that ought to be done by me. You start to feel the juices coming up inside you as you listen to words like that. Well, that's the purpose of his using the word zeal. But why the word zeal? Well, zeal has a history in spiritual and religious contexts. For example, a preacher and writer in the 1600s by the name of William Fenner wrote, zeal is the fire of the soul. Now think about what Charles said, the inward fire of the soul. Similar language, although he was writing 200 years later. And around the same time, and even before that, the King James Bible, which was actually published in the early 1600s, used zeal 26 times. And Charles was a great student of the Bible, and this is one of the reasons he incorporated the idea of zeal in his 12 powers. In the Bible, zeal is used like this. He was zealous for his God. Or it talked about God or the Lord being zealous as well, the zeal of the Lord. So let's go back to that King James Bible. Zeal or some form appears 26 times. What about the word passion? Survey says 3 times. What about the word enthusiasm? 0 times. Doesn't even appear in the King James Bible. And energy, same thing, 0 times. So if we were to take the language out of the 1600s or even the 1800s, because the King James Bible really was the prominent Bible for about 250 years through the 1950s. Today we might use words like passionate energy or spiritual enthusiasm. But now let's go still a little bit deeper. How do we describe or define zeal today? Well, we might use words like energy, life force, aliveness. The Oxford Dictionary, in fact, defines zeal as great energy or enthusiasm in pursuit of a cause or an objective. There was a writer, theologian, civil rights leader by the name of Howard Thurman this century, last century actually, who said, ask yourself what makes you come alive and go and do that. Well, he didn't name the word zeal, but he was pointing to what I think Charles was attempting to get us to think about when we use the word zeal. And there's a Unity speaker down in Temple, Texas, Mary Grace Sorensen, who described it this way: your zeal already exists within you as an inner spark. So I'd like you to think about sparks for a minute. And if you can see the screen, watch these sparks begin to appear. Now, what if we were to breathe into those sparks, to see them as our inner light and begin to allow that inner light to express in more full terms? What might it look like? Might it look something like this picture of this young Mongolian girl who is just so zealous in her delight, and the camel behind her as well? For me, zeal doesn't even have to have a focus or an objective. It just is. It's the sheer radiance of being that is natural to all of us. I love that picture. So whether you consider zeal to be the fire of the soul, like this picture, or an inner spark, or perhaps the ability to come alive, like this girl playing in the leaves, zeal, energy, enthusiasm is the ability, it's something we all have access to. So how do you feel your zeal? Do you experience it as enthusiasm? Or perhaps you even have times when you feel passionate about something. Is that how you feel your zeal? Is it when you feel really alive, perhaps walking in nature, or when you feel deeply, passionately, divinely, or humanly in love? Do you feel it as a gentle glow inside? You see, zeal doesn't have to be all this. It can be very, very gentle and soft, and yet very real. It might be the experience of just pure bliss or joy, or simply words like, ah, yes, wow. Perhaps it looks like this child on the swing. Can you see the zeal exuding from that child? Or perhaps from this, what you might, I was going to call it a Cheshire cat, but it's even more so. There is so much life shining through the face of that cat, that for me is zeal in its essence. Think of some moments when you felt that aliveness in your life. Can you think of any? Birth of a child, favorite project, a relationship, something you deeply love, whatever it is, see if you can touch that aliveness. Because this is more than just a talk or some words. This is about you finding and touching and knowing that place inside, so that in the coming week you can blow life and energy into that. I'd now like to throw you a bit of a curveball. And if you know baseball, you just watch on the screen how that ball changes directions. And that's what I'd like to do with you in the next part of the talk. I want to throw you a curve. Do you sometimes feel an edge to your zeal? And what I mean by that is, if you can see the screen, you look at this cat. This cat is if you Google smiling cat, you'll get this one up. But you look at the eyes and you look at the teeth and you go, boy, that's a cat with edge. It looks almost a little devilish. So what about our side of zeal that goes there? For example, judgment. Do any of you ever judge anything? 1, 2, 3. I hope so, because it means you're still human like I am. But think about where judgment comes up in your life. Maybe you're watching politicians on the television. Maybe you're looking at a member of your family or your friends, and you begin to judge. What about moving to another level of zeal, which is frustration? Where you start to go, why are you saying that or doing that? Or won't you do something? Do you get that feeling inside in your belly or your chest? What about, have you ever tried to change anybody with zeal? Or let's go a step beyond that. Have you ever felt anger or attack thoughts towards somebody in your life? And what about pure hate? Now, I know we don't normally go to these places in unity. We try to be positive and spiritual, but we also need to be human and practical and in the world, and acknowledge that this is part of our human condition. This is part of how our zeal gets experienced. It looks something more like this cat on the screen, growling and hissing and about to pounce, perhaps. This is a side we need to deal with. As I said, these two are zeal. It's when we use our energy, our life force, and our aliveness strongly for something or against something. That's why we get words like zealous, defined in the I think the Merriam-Webster dictionary, as fervent partisanship. And then why we get the word zealot from the same root, a person who is fanatical and uncompromising in pursuit of their ideals, or anything, can be anything in the world. This is where zeal takes that curve into a place that we know, but we don't necessarily want to go. So how did we get there from that radiant, beautiful girl and camel to this place of fanaticism and uncompromisingness? Let's explore it a little bit. It's a zeal guided by our human ego, by the part of us that gets afraid or sees ourselves as separate from others. Part of human thought and life. A writer by the name of Joel Beek on a website called revelation21.org said this about it. To a certain degree, we are all zealots. I love the directness of this. He says, the question is not whether we are zealous, but what we are zealous for. Because zeal runs in our veins for what we love or against what we hate. Take a breath. So how do we deal with this and come back to Charles' ideal of the purity of zeal or the power of zeal to help us transform our consciousness into spiritual awareness and our larger selves? Well, before I do that, there's one more kind of zeal I would want to reveal with you. It's when we use our energy, life force, or aliveness to avoid something. Has anybody ever avoided something? Any procrastinators or people who go, I'd rather not go there? Well, avoiding is when we don't let ourselves feel or see or hear or do something. Maybe it's something we don't like, but we need to acknowledge. Or maybe it's something we love and are afraid to let out. And one more step in this kind of zeal. We actively suppress something. Yep, we don't just avoid it, we push it down inside because it has a lot of energy. It wants to come up. We have to use more energy and zeal to push it down. It might be quiet, don't say that, or don't go there. Maybe it's words we hear inside, or maybe it's something people have said to us, but it's active energy used to suppress. Another side of zeal. Maybe we use words like, I can't do that, or I shouldn't. Maybe it's words like, inside ourselves, others won't accept that, or me if I do that. They'll be upset, or it would be too much for them. Or maybe we ask ourselves questions, what will people think of me? And we use that as our technique of suppression. Once again, it's zeal guided by the ego or some form of fear instead of by spirit and love. And in fact, that's what I did 40 years ago when I came across this book, as I've told you in other talks. When I came across A Course in Miracles and began on my spiritual path, the idea of dealing with spirituality and religion was so challenging to my ego, to my psyche, that I repressed it fully. Would barely talk about it for 20 years, and I still repress some of these ideas today. That's how deeply suppression, zeal of suppression runs in me. And maybe somewhere that's happened to you too. So what I'd like to explore is, how do we reconnect to zeal? And I use those two asterisks to point out the kind of zeal that Charles Fillmore was pointing to in the 12 Powers. The first way I'm going to suggest that I've used and may be helpful to you is begin to notice what you avoid or suppress. Maybe you avoid something you don't want, or suppressing something that's difficult for you to even go to. Or maybe it's something you love that you are suppressing. So what I'm going to suggest is, how do you consider the idea of, don't let your inner zealot stomp your zeal or what's important to you. Kind of like this foot coming down and stomping on you or what's important to you. Now, if you start to get a sound like da 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 da, you might recognize that this foot comes from Monty Python, but it's a really good demonstration of what we do inside ourselves, right? If you can't see this the computer in the next week, so you can see Monty Python's foot stomping. The next way we can reconnect to zeal is by beginning to notice your feelings of aliveness and joy. Now, you're going to notice the ones where you're exuberant, but what I'm inviting you to do is begin to look for the wispy ones, the ones that are very gentle, that are like a fragrance in the air of blossoms in springtime, a gentle wind inside of you of aliveness or joy, or maybe a little fire that you need to blow some oxygen into. Because it's by focusing on what brings us joy that we begin to ignite our zeal, as Unity says in this month's affirmation. Begin to focus on the small things that bring you aliveness or feelings of aliveness and joy. And now the third thing I'd invite you to notice, very different, is notice your judgments, your anger, and your hate. Now, it's often said in Unity, focus on the positive. But the only way that we can fully be real with our positivity, not just from a head level, but from a full gut soul level, is by noticing the things that block our joy, like our judgments, our anger, and our hate. There's a speaker by the name of Karen Shepherd, Unity in Ohio, Good Shepherd Ministries, who says, commune with these. And what she's essentially saying is, hold them gently, perhaps like this heart in the palm of your hand, to hold your less than positive zeal aspects, your hate or your anger or your pain, and just see if you hold them, what that might reveal to you at a deeper level. Or perhaps it's kind of like this woman holding her baby. And instead of pushing judgment, anger, and hate away, if we hold them to our chest, we might be able to heal and transform them, which is really the purpose of Unity as well. So here's the challenge with zeal, because zeal is love and joy, but it's also suppression and hate. And those are the aspects that we feel in this world. how we use that zeal will shape our life experiences through the rest of our lives and for those of people around us. So how are we going to use this thing called zeal to really make it one of the 12 powers that connects us and reconnects us with the divine? Well, I'd invite you to consider 3 questions. What do you want to experience in your life? I mean, really. What kind of world do you want to create? And what kind of transformation do you want to make? As we talked about in our mission and vision, we want to transform the world, but unless we look at the kind of zeal that we're bringing into the world, we won't get the transformation we want to create. So let me turn to a story that's very personal and one I've shared a little bit with that I'd like to share a little more now. This fall is the 40th anniversary of this program. Now you might recognize this blue box in the more sort of current ways of seeing it as this brighter one, or the bin. The one at the bottom, as I may have shown you in the past, is how the blue box began. That was the first blue box. And this fall being the 40th anniversary, I decided to write the story of how the blue box began, and I put it up online. Well, as I was writing it over the past several months, I began to realize that it has very direct connections to this idea of zeal today. So I want to explore that with you very briefly. Back then, in the late 70s, early 80s, I was really not just pretty passionate about garbage, I was really passionate about it. I was preaching the reduce, reuse, recycle, the 3 R's of garbage anywhere I could go, particularly in Kitchener-Waterloo, where I lived at the time. You might say I had a missionary zeal for reduce, reuse, recycle. I can laugh about it now, but at that time, it was creating a lot of conflict in my life because I was in a right, wrong, better, worse, my way versus your way kind of approach to change. And it wasn't creating the kind of change that I wanted to see in the world, even though I was pretty passionate about it. I and my colleagues, particularly in the nonprofit sector, thought that what we were doing was right and best about how we were trying to bring ways of reducing waste into the world. And we thought that what government and industry were doing wasn't the right way. Ever been there with something you believed, whether it's government and industry or your wife or husband or anybody else in your life? Well, we saw government and industry as the opposition or the enemy. That's how it felt inside. Well, because I was in such conflict, life brought me this Course in Miracles, as I've talked about it before, and it helped me to begin to ask some new questions. How can I begin to see people differently in a way that I don't feel so much conflict and pain and anger? How do I treat people differently? How do I begin to really listen to them, connect with them, and actually heal my thoughts and my anger and my separateness from them? Well, that came into my life just around the same time as it says that I reconnected with this friend from the University of Waterloo. Niall was the collection manager of a garbage collection company in Kitchener. We'd known each other for a few years, and I met him at a conference where he said to me, wouldn't it be amazing if we could start to recycle more in our city? Well, I was impressed. And so I gave him a proposal about how we could do it. And he then invited me to take it and present it to the company president. Now, this is a garbage collection company president, a former banker who I never thought would go for it a million years. But he said to me in his offices one day, I never thought that making money off of garbage was such a great idea. It's kind of like a waste for a city to pay for just picking up garbage. We should be able to do more with it. Well, it was that lead in, and Niall's as well, where I heard their hearts, their values. And I and my company began to think into how would we create a recycling program for this garbage collection company that could really transform things. So we created and proposed and created a 1,100 home test program in the city of Kitchener. But we didn't want to just see recycling work in Kitchener. We wanted to develop a program where we could transform waste management across all of Canada. That's what we wrote up as our vision. And here's how we brought it about. We created that test program to see if people would actually recycle. Because up to that time, many people said they wanted to recycle, but didn't in local programs. So people have often asked me, how did you convince people to take part? Well, we didn't. We didn't want to try to convince or pressure or push people to recycle. What we tried to do was inspire and empower them. We wanted to, in today's language, unlock the zeal in them. So what we did is we educated them through a monthly newsletter called the Total News. We encouraged them, provided them useful things and tips, and we really wanted to empower them. And that's why we created the phrase, "You can make a difference." You see, in our heart of hearts, we believed that people cared, that they wanted to do something about the environment, reducing pollution or taxes or creating jobs, but they didn't know how. But that if we could show them some simple ways to do that, they could find in their heart of hearts how they could contribute and make a difference. We also saw everyone involved as a partner. We tried to serve and look into every person's interests, thinking into their needs and the needs of people even beyond this program. So we began with citizens, residents, the alderman locally, and the mayor. We worked with each one in this 1,100 home test area. We worked with the local radio, television, and newspapers, with nonprofit organizations locally and provincially. We worked with the province and the federal government and with industry, because what we were trying to do is not see them as people we're trying to change, but how do we invite everybody's needs to the table to serve everybody so that if this program worked, it really could be used anywhere. Well, 3 weeks after we began that program, 3 weeks meaning in the middle of October, we saw that the program was already beginning to be a success. 50% of people, the test area had already participated. It had touched something in people in that neighborhood, but not just them. People across the city began to want it. And it kept growing and growing and growing. It grew citywide, and then it grew across Kitchener, 2 other cities in Southern Ontario. And then the province of Ontario decided to pick up on this blue box program and the thinking behind it as the model for growing recycling across Ontario. And then it grew to cities across Canada, the United States, and other places around the world. 8 years later, the United Nations Environment Program awarded this plaque to the nonprofit sector, to industry, and to government, all 3, for leadership and support for the environment and cooperation in action. So we had moved from that silo of we know what's best and you're doing it wrongly to saying, how can we work together, all of us? Because it takes all of us to create this shift in this community and around the world. So why do I share this story in such detail? Because I wanted to get at the nitty-gritty ideas that we used that I call insights for how we can make change. And they're insights that could be applied to social change that you want to create, change within unity, change in your family or your relationships, because I think the same things at a core apply, and it all has to do with zeal. Because with our zeal, we have a fundamental choice. We can use it to create separateness and conflict and keep pushing others, trying to get them to change, which creates conflict in us and in them. Or we can use our zeal to create love, connection, grow healing, and serve each other and ourselves at the same time. A fundamental choice. So how do we know which way we're going and which way we're using zeal? Well, here's a way that you might check yourself. In your desire to do what is right or best for yourself or for the world or relationship, anything else, ask yourself this question. Do I tend to put others down with my zeal or raise them up? Do I tend to shut down other voices or invite them to speak and speak from their heart? Do I close my ears to what they're saying? Or do I open my mind and heart so as to hear them deeply and connect with them, reflect on it, and bring it into what I'm doing? Do I try to change people, or do I encourage them to be true to themselves? When our zeal is about trying to get our way or fight against someone else's, we're still using the human ego to create transformation and change. It's something we all do. It's not to be judged. It's just to be acknowledged and questioned. Is this way working? Is this way healing? But when we use zeal to try to find what's best for all, that's when we're in service of spirit. That's when we are really beginning to heal the Christ mind, that aspect of consciousness that sees itself as separate and is into the separateness of the world. The healing of this mind is what our spiritual work is about. It's the reconnecting of our collective souls, all beings of all kinds, all life. You see, what I've come to realize in this talk and in that work and in this work that I've been doing for 40 years, that a zeal for God, and I use those asterisks again, the zeal that Charles was pointing to is really a zeal for good, with that double O, as Rosie pointed out in her talk last Sunday. It's about using zeal to find answers that help anyone and everyone. It's about treating people with the love and the respect and the healing, the enthusiasm of joy and love, to help people to actually experience the presence of the divine in their lives. That, to me, is how we take zeal and transform it in our minds and in our living, so that we truly experience the radiance of zeal that Charles Fillmore and in Unity for 150 years has been trying to help us experience in our world. I'll invite you to take a deep breath. Let go of the words and the ideas, and just begin to listen inside and reflect as I turn to my brother Nathen for how he says yes in the world. So with that, Nathen, take it away. And Brother Nathen.
I'm muted.
There he is.
Okay.
Welcome back.
Brother Eric, it's always a great pleasure to hear your talk. Here is my enthusiastic reply to it. I say yes, and I hope that you all sing yes with me.
I say yes, yes, to the thing itself, yes, yes, to the way it works, yes, yes, to what it does, yes, 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 to how to use it through me. That's the way it works, principle in action, limitless is what I am, yes, I know I can, live in satisfaction, heating the call, having it all, peace of mind is mine. I say yes, yes, to the thing itself, yes, yes, to the way it works, yes, yes, to what it does, yes, 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 to how to use it, God, Spirit, that's the thing itself, a cause of all creation, origin of everything, it's what makes me sing, a powerful foundation, where voice that whispers in my ear. I say yes, yes, to the thing itself. Yes, yes, to the way it works. Yes, yes, to what it does. Yes, 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 to how to use it. The channel is wide open, the circuitry divine. I'm focused on the positive, and that's fine. I demonstrate abundance and manifest the proof. Immersed in love and wisdom, surrounded by the truth. And I say yes, yes, to the thing itself. Yes, yes, to the way it works. Yes, yes, to what it does. Yes, 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 to how to use it. Yes, to the thing itself and to the way it works. Yes, to what it does, and yes, to how to use it. Yes, to the thing itself and to the way it works. Yes, to what it does, and yes, to how to use it. The channel is wide open, the circuitry divine. I'm focused on the positive, and that's fine. I demonstrate abundance and manifest the proof. Immersed in love and wisdom, surrounded by the truth. And I say yes, yes, the thing itself. Yes, yes, the way it works. Yes, yes, to what it does. Yes, 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 to how to use it. I say yes, yes, to the thing itself. Yes, yes, to the way it works. Yes, yes, to what it does. Yes, 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 to how to use it. I say yes, yes, to the thing itself. Yes, yes, the way it works. Yes, yes, to what it does. Yes, 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 to how to use it.
Woof, woof, that was amazing. Thank you so, so much, Nathen, for your energetic and heartwarming and delightful songs. And to Eric, thank you so much for your insightful and inspiring message. We all need to grab a hold of that and digest it.